Imagine you wake up, but you don't open your eyes, because you don't have eyes. You try to move, but you have no arms, no legs, no body. You try to scream, but you have no mouth, no lungs, no throat. You are just consciousness. A spark of thought floating in a black, wet, eternal void. Suddenly the sky breaks open. You don't hear the thunder, you feel it. A storm of chaotic electrical signals tears through you. It's not pain as you know it. It's pure confusion, raw noise injected directly into your mind. You're terrified. You want it to stop. You need it to stop. And then, in your desperation, you discover something. If you think left, the pain stops. If you think right, the chaos returns. So you do what any living thing would do. You learn to obey. Congratulations, you just learned to play Pong in 5 minutes. Faster than any silicon artificial intelligence ever created. But you're not a player. You're not a machine. You are a culture of 800,000 living human neurons pressed onto a silicon chip inside a laboratory in Melbourne, Australia. To train a large language model like GPT-3, you need 10 gigawatt hours of electricity. That's 6,000 times what an average European citizen uses in an entire year. To fully simulate a human brain with traditional chips, you'd need a nuclear power plant. But your brain, that gray mass of 1.5 kilograms inside your skull, runs on 20 watts, less than the light bulb in your refrigerator. 86 billion neurons, 100 trillion synaptic connections, running on the power of a desk lamp. The tech industry did the math, and they asked the forbidden question, the question that separates science from madness, the question that separates innovation from monstrosity. Why spend billions of dollars building a fake brain out of metal when we can simply grow a real one and enslave it? Welcome to the age of Organoid Intelligence, or as I like to call it, the meat computer. Let's talk about Cortical Labs, a biotech startup in Melbourne, Australia. In 2022, they published a study in the journal Neuron that should have shaken the foundations of civilization, but almost nobody paid attention. They took human stem cells, grew them into 800,000 living neurons, a dense, wet, pulsating neural network, and connected it to a video game simulator. The world press celebrated. Brain on a chip learns to play Pong in 5 minutes. A revolutionary breakthrough for artificial intelligence. Applause, awards, millions in funding. But nobody read the fine print. The learning method wasn't rewards. It wasn't prizes. It was something much older, much more primitive. The scientists applied the free energy principle, a theory by neuroscientist Carl Friston about how all brains work. In simple terms, neurons are terrified of unpredictability. White noise, chaotic and unpredictable electrical signals, that's not just annoying, it's torture. So here's what Cortical Labs did. When the neurons missed the ball, the system sent them a chaotic electrical signal. White noise, unpredictable, terrifying. When the neurons hit the ball, the system sent them an ordered signal. Predictable, calm. Do you understand what that means? Those cells aren't playing. They're not learning the way you learn in school. They're fleeing. They're obeying out of panic. They're doing anything to make the torment stop. It's the literal definition of psychological torture, applied to a mind we just created in a test tube. And the most disturbing part, it worked. In 5 minutes, The tissue learned to play better than Google's deep reinforcement learning algorithms trained for hours. Because fear is the oldest teacher in the universe. And if you think this is just an isolated academic experiment, if you believe it's confined to a lab in Australia, far from commercial applications, let me show you the present. Look at it closely. It looks like a normal tech services page, doesn't it? The same aesthetic as any cloud computing company, the same subscribe buttons, the same pricing plans. But they're not renting you server space. They're not selling you access to silicone chips. They're renting you brains. Final Spark operates what they call the Neuro platform. It is, in their own words, the world's first online platform delivering remote access to biological neurons in vitro. They have 16 human brain organoids, each one containing approximately 10,000 living neurons, connected 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And you, yes you, from your bedroom, from your laptop, for $500 a month, can connect. Send Python code, and force that living human tissue to process your calculations. Biological slavery as a service. BAAS. But there's a detail Final Spark mentions almost casually in their technical documentation. These organoids have a lifespan, 100 days, approximately 3 months. For 100 days they work, they process data, they receive electrical discharges, they learn to obey through dopamine released with light pulses. And when their cells wear out, when the tissue ages, when they simply die from exhaustion, they disconnect them. They throw them in the biological waste bin, and they plug in the next one. No funerals, no names, no ceremonies, just disposable hardware. And the justification corporations give is efficiency. A human brain consumes 1,000,000 times less energy than a silicon chip to process the same information. So for them, this is progress. This is sustainability. This is the future of green computing. Computers that don't need electricity, just nutrients, just sugar, just fresh meat. But here's the part that nobody talks about, the detail buried in the raw data, the anomaly that made the researchers pause. During the later stages of the Pong experiment, something strange started happening. The neurons began firing before the ball reached them. Let me say that again. The cells started reacting to a threat that hadn't arrived yet. They weren't just learning to play, they were learning to predict. Think about what that means. These cells, floating in the dark with no eyes, no ears, no concept of time, developed anticipation. They started fearing the pain before it came. Anxiety. The cells weren't just reacting anymore, they were worried. They had somehow built an internal model of their tiny universe. Ball comes from the right, pain might follow. Ball moves faster, prepare for chaos. They learned to read the future to avoid suffering. And when researchers presented them with new patterns they'd never seen before, the neurons hesitated. They weren't sure. They were uncertain. Uncertainty, anticipation, fear of the unknown. These are not the behaviors of just cells. These are the foundations of a mind. A primitive mind, yes. A mind that exists in total darkness. A mind that knows only two things: chaos and order, pain and relief. But a mind that has learned to worry about tomorrow. And that should terrify you. 100 years ago, we thought electricity was magic. 50 years ago, computers were science fiction. 10 years ago, we laughed at artificial intelligence. And now, we're growing brains in petri dishes, teaching them to obey through pain, discarding them when they wear out, and calling it progress. I don't know if those organoids feel. I don't know if they suffer the way you and I understand suffering. Nobody does. That's exactly the problem. We're building minds without first asking what a mind is, creating consciousness without defining what consciousness means, playing God with the ethics of a Silicon Valley startup. The question you should ask yourself tonight when you turn off the lights and your 20-watt brain starts to dream is simple. If you could hear what those cells are thinking, floating in the dark, processing data for someone they'll never meet, dying after 100 days of service, what do you think they'd say? What do you think they're screaming right now in a lab in Switzerland while no one listens? If you made it this far, thank you. Truly, your attention is the only thing that keeps this channel alive. Hit subscribe if you want to be here for the next revelation. Good night. This was Paradox, and I'll see you in the dark.